Good morning. This is the Blaine's World webcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also find us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You get more information and listen to previous shows on our website, which is behind me, blainesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. And each week we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce a whole bunch of folks from, I guess it's what county? It's
Burke.
Burke County, not too far from the Asheville area. And I guess I'll go from left to right. So let's see if I have the right name. So it's Phyllis Garrison is with us. Great. Thank you for joining us, Phyllis. And it's also Martha and Keith Watts in the middle there, or at the bottom. And also, I think I finally have it, Kelly Taylor. So thanks for being with me today. And guys, what I'd like you to do is wave to all your fans and friends who are watching this. So if you're watching
Hi
this,
there.
these are all a whole bunch of people from an area not too far from us. And what we're going to be talking about is kind of an exciting thing they're all involved in, and that's on putting on a play. This almost sounds like a Mickey Rooney, Judy Garland type thing, you know. Let's get a whole bunch of people together and let's put on a show. And that's almost what it sounds like. But I guess I'll start off with you, Phyllis, a little bit, in that this is a production involving, you were telling me off the air, two different companies are kind of involved in putting this on. Is that how you would describe it?
Yes, indeed. It's two local nonprofits.
Please.
Uh, the first one is the Burke Theater Guild, which has been in existence since 2013. I started that back then because I wanted to do a major musical production and direct it myself. I used to direct many musical theater productions when I taught at East Burke High School. Keith and Kelly were two of my students. They were in several of those productions. And I didn't want to work through another theater group. I wanted to do it myself. So I had to start my own nonprofit. It took me 4 years to raise enough money to do it, the production. But since then, we've done some other smaller things. We hope to be more active in the future and do more things. We got kind of messed up with COVID and a lot of other stuff. Um, but that's one group that's sponsoring it. And we are working with our town nonprofit group, which is called Grow with Drexel. It has been in existence since 2013 and is very active in trying to build up our town, to spruce it up, make it look good, remodel buildings, all kinds of things we've done there. But some of the folks said, why don't we get you folks together and do some theater productions? And Kelly is an expert. You can speak with her about Reader's Theater, and we had done Reader's Theater before, so we thought this would be fun to do. By the way, this production is mostly ghost stories, and you can see by the terrible lighting in my house that I am fitting right in because I look like a ghost. But anyway,
To the
uh,
contrary, I asked you to do that, so thank you very much.
I did a good job. Yes,
Okay.
excellent.
Well, let me
Yes.
ask you a question too. So the two groups are working together. Is this the first time you've done a joint production?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, it is. I've done with the Burke Theater Guild, I've done a number of things,
right.
talent shows with students, and so we kind of co-worked with the school system and things like that. But this one is more of a fundraiser for Grow with Drexel, and I'm on the board of Grow with Drexel, so it only seemed natural for us to kind of team up. Whoever has a skill utilizes it in whatever. We have an architect, we have a former principal who's good with money and good at getting things going. I will mention our president, Kathy Kazort, who is recently retired from the State Department. She traveled all over the state doing literacy, and she is very, very enthusiastic and active. Our vice president is Dan Hoyle, who is a retired principal, and everybody likes Dan, so he's good at going around and asking people to do things. So, see, we have different people with different skills. Some can build things, some can write, some can act, some can raise money. And it only made sense to use whatever skill or experience we may have to
And
try to
and
forward
and
our
some and some people
endeavor.
some people like Martha and Keith can do it all, so that's,
Oh,
they get,
absolutely.
and by the way, we'll ask you too, where since you mentioned it, Phyllis, I assume if anybody's watching this, especially in the area, you're also welcoming other people involved or volunteers can get involved in this as
Oh,
well.
absolutely. Um, uh, small towns, speaking of the small town thing, um, improvement, rejuvenation of small towns is really a hot thing right now
Sure.
across our country and across the world. There are European cities that are doing that as well. And so that's the main goal that we're doing. We've really had a thriving city. Drexel, North Carolina, is the home of Drexel Furniture Company, which is now no longer in business, but for about 100 years, it was the prominent furniture company in the United States. And when I was growing up, just as an example, Drexel Furniture was always there to provide us grants, funding for various things. There was something going on in our little town all the time. Our high school had the best band ever. We had the greatest band director in Catherine Cyphers, and she left a lasting legacy of, nationwide, really, because so many of her students went off to teach music in other places. So we were used to performances, plays, pageants, all kinds of things were going on all the time. And once Drexel Furniture left and we consolidated our high schools, then Drexel pretty much fell by the wayside as a thriving town. And we're trying to bring that back. And we have had a lot of success just in the last year of doing many things and have many more goals.
Well,
And this doing some theater is just a new aspect of that.
well, let me
We're
jump
just
in
trying to
here.
do many things.
Let me jump in here if I can and turn to Kelly a little bit because I guess that's where you come into this play a little bit, Kelly. Because I understand I heard from Keith and Martha that this production that's already in the middle of its run is involved in something called Reader's Theater. And if I can, Kelly, for the folks who don't know what Reader's Theater is, could you just explain what it is? Well, I'm
Reader's
asking.
Theater
Wait,
is
I'm sorry. I meant to ask Kelly. I'm sorry, Kelly, because you're involved
That
in
is
this.
Kelly.
I'm sorry.
yes, that's me.
I'll get names right. Sorry about that, guys. I don't see the names there. Kelly, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, Reader's Theater is a minimalistic type of theater um, on the spectrum of representational type theater and presentational type theater. Um, it's a type of theater that leaves a lot to the audience's imagination. If you think of movies are on the far end of the representational type of theater, where they provide everything for the audience. If you have a movie like, say, Lord of the Rings, it takes a something that is imaginary. There's not hobbits and fairies in real life, but in a
No, really?
movie,
No.
oh, I hate
Oh,
to
thank
spoil
you.
that. I should have said that
Things I
before.
learned.
But they take these imaginary creatures and they use costuming and makeup and they provide their world for you. On the other, and that's representational. In presentational, they leave everything to the audience's imagination. Storytellers are on the presentational end, where they don't have costumes, they don't have scenery. Everything is in the audience's imagination. Traditional theater is halfway in between. Uh, for example, in a conventional play, instead of having an entire house, they might just have two walls or three walls of a house, maybe just one wall of a house, and then you're supposed to imagine the rest of the house. Reader's theater is more towards the storyteller end. It's more presentational. So the audience is expected to imagine more of the story. You do more of the work. The actors, the performers use their voices and um, from that, the audience is allowed to let their imaginations run wild. And it's a lot of times it's called storytellers theater or theater of the mind. The type that we're doing for this, and there's a lot of different forms that it can take. In the one that we're doing, it's a we're just using our voices and telling these ghost stories and traditional folk tales um, to present these stories. Well, let me see now.
I got it.
How would we describe it?
Well, you're telling stories. I guess the other key
Okay.
I asked Kelly too is so it's also done typically right with a minimal amount of settings or no
Yes,
settings.
yes. In this particular one, we're not using any set pieces, and we just dress in sort of uh, dark, dark, dark clothing that is not meant to be a costume per se. And so, like I said, it's a lot is left for the audience to imagine.
And the nice thing about this production too is we could then get, as we talked before, Phyllis can do the lighting. So it's like the lighting. I asked her to do that, but the lighting is perfect. The dark lighting, and it'll fit right in. Talk to me though, Phyllis. I think not Phyllis. I'm sorry, Kelly. So had you also studied this too, or did you go to college for this about Reader's Theater?
Yes, I majored in performance studies at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and I got my doctorate in it at LSU, and then I taught at the University of North Texas for 15 years,
Okay.
and
And
taught
so
directing Reader's Theater.
directing Reader's Theater, because again, all of a sudden, Kelly, I'm saying at least in West North Carolina, it's all of a sudden becoming very popular. That all the local theater companies now have just added Reader's Theater shows and productions, and it's very exciting. And until a couple of years ago, hardly anybody did it. So, are you seeing that in terms of throughout the country?
It's something that becomes popular every once in a while. It's
cyclic.
It's cyclic. Yeah, yeah. Sometimes people like a lot of spectacle, but then we get that back down to the basics and enjoy the just good old plain storytelling. Where, like I said, the audience likes to use their imagination and have that power to see things the way that they want to.
And one last thing we'll talk about Reader's Theater in case anybody's listening or to encourage other people to get involved is the nice thing about it also, though, is that if you don't have to, there's not a lot of memorization unless you want to. Is that correct?
It depends. Like I say, it just depends on which style of Reader's Theater that you're doing. Traditionally, it's about putting the focus on the narrative. And so traditionally, people have books in their hands. You can memorize it. In this one, we're not. We're all.
We have a script.
We have a script, and we do a lot of reading. We read in our Reader's Theater, but sometimes it is all memorized.
And I guess I'll turn to Keith and then Martha to talk about this as well. But I guess too, Keith, we're talking about some memorization, the reading. But I guess as you practice it, rehearse it, it almost becomes secondhand. It's like a lot of times what I've seen Keith and Martha very impressed is that even though they're reading it, you can't tell they're reading it. I assume you just don't. Well, we'll talk about how long it takes. And so I'll ask Keith on this. For this particular production, how long have you been working on it?
We've been rehearsing this particular set of stories for 2 months, every Monday for 2 months, I think, something like that. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty close.
Right.
So and our rehearsals are normally an hour and a half. Fortunately, everybody else is really smart and can read really well. I'm just loud, I think.
We sing too.
And we
Yes.
sing. We sing.
We sing.
Some of the
So it's a Reader's Theater and musical theater.
One of our stories is the tale of Tom Dooley, which is very popular. Hang down your head, Tom Dooley, and we sing that song, and then we intersperse the dialogue and the narration of tell that story, and then we end up with the completed version of the song,
Right.
and we did that for two other stories that we actually read in this series.
And
So
I'll ask you, Keith, too, in terms of before this, had you done any acting or performing?
yes, more than I probably should have. I was in church plays as a youngster, and had the opportunity to work with Phyllis, who was our fearless leader at East Burke High School. I was in several shows there. I was Harold Hill and the Music Man my sophomore year
Okay.
or my junior year, and then had the opportunity to perform in My Fair Lady my senior year. And then Kelly's a little younger than me. She was in those two and went on. So that's that. Our little East Burke High School in that period of time was replete with a lot of acting and stuff like that. And then later on, I went to Mars Hill College and actually returned there, bought a house outside of Mars Hill, and I became uh, heavily involved with SART, Southern Appalachian Repertory Theater, that's sponsored by Mars Hill now University. But that's a very rich tradition there. They've been about 40, 45 years now, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Every summer for years, we had a nucleus of about 12 or 15 of us that came back every year, people from all over the United States, and had a lot of big name um, people there that came and acted with us, and it was very rich in tradition, and even if I had something to do with it, it was really good quality uh, good quality theater there. So
And
I've
since,
been able to do that,
and
and
since you're mentioning it, we'll give a shout out to a mutual friend. Keith, we were talking off the air about your director, the guy who did a lot of the stuff there, and that was that you mentioned his name. Give a shout out
oh
there.
yeah, Bill Gregg. There were several people, but Bill was instrumental. He came in as a theater production, as a theater professor there at
Right.
Mars Hill, and every summer would dedicate probably 15 or 20 years. I think Bill was heavily involved in it as the director, and Jim Thomas was another guy. Neil
Neil
St.
St.
Clair was
Neil St. Clair, yeah.
involved, and then
Yes.
uh, great long-term friendships with people, like I say, from all over the country, that every year they uh, would pull up stakes from whatever they were doing and take the summer off and go to Mars Hill. And
Great stuff.
we put on in 3 months, probably about, I don't know, at least 10 shows.
And what was amazing
We were
about
doing
it, Keith,
three shows at a time.
and what was amazing about it, Keith, was that you didn't do it in a long period of time. Phyllis, you would know in terms of high school productions, you have several weeks, months. So I would do it, what was it, Keith, in 2 week turnaround sometimes? You know, it's just, and
At SART,
Yes.
yes, it was. It was very, very quick.
I'll ask
It
also,
kept you on your toes, that's for sure.
then if I can, Martha, so in terms of performing, had you done any performing before?
No, I had not. I had not. The very first time that I ever did anything was at SART, and I was in Funny Girl. I was an extra in Funny Girl, and it was a lot of fun. And just being with Keith, I got to know all of these people that he has spoken about and formed relationships with them. And it was just a lot of fun. And then once we moved from Asheville to Burke County, we met with Phyllis. And then the first production that I actually did was in Camelot. I was Nimue. And I was just thrilled to be able to do that. And it was a growing experience for me. And then we started the Readers Theater, and I had never done any acting. I'm a singer. And of course, when you sing, you kind of act too.
Sure.
But as far as memorizing or, becoming another character as actors do, I really had not had very much experience with that. Um, and when we started the Readers Theater, it opened a whole new field for me. It actually gave me more chances to be creative. It was a confidence booster for me because I was stepping out of the box and doing something I had never done. To become, I mean, it was like play acting, and of course, all children do play acting when they're growing up, and it was just a lot of fun, and we had such a wonderful time, and it gave me the confidence to be able to speak in front of a lot of people with confidence. It was just a great growing tool for me. So that's my experience with the theater. But as we continue with the Readers Theater, I'm finding that I'm gaining more passion for it and want to do more with the Readers Theater and possibly plays.
By the way, before I turn this back to the others as well, I'll ask you to give a shout out to another mutual friend of ours, though. You mentioned Funny Girl, and of course, Funny Girl starred. Who did you star with? Who was the star of Funny Girl?
Hi, Liz. Hi, Liz Allen.
Okay,
Yeah, Liz Allen.
Liz.
She was wonderful, and I was her help getting changed in between scenes because she'd have like 3 minutes to get into the next costume. And so, but I love Liz and Bill, and she was awesome. She was
Okay.
really awesome.
Well, I'll make sure they listen to this as well. But let me go back to then Kelly, if I can get you back on screen. That was great, Kelly, what you did. Shifted the camera a little bit. That was perfect. So Kelly, aside from studying theater and being involved in theater, do you also have a performing background as well? Had you acted?
Oh,
Yes,
yes.
yes. I was a BFA acting major at UNC Greensboro.
Okay. And do you remember the question I asked? I want to come up with an idea for all of you in just a second. But the question I asked of you, Kelly, do you remember the very first play you were ever in?
The first play I was ever in was when I was in the second grade. I starred as the witch in a play called Kasi Lampalantimwe.
You remember? Well, that's pretty impressive. And I'll ask you the question. I'm leading up to a fundraising idea for all of you in a second. But I assume, so you're in the second grade. Do you have a videotape of that production anywhere?
No, that was before videotape.
No, I find this hard to believe. But anyway, here's the idea, guys, and I'll share it with all of you, but especially Phyllis. And I've had this for a long time. If we ever did a fundraiser for the two groups, everybody would recreate, Kelly, their very first role. Okay? So in other words, can you think about it that you second grade, you don't have a video of it or production. Wouldn't that be a cool thing that you go back and do the very first thing you ever did for a fundraiser? What do you think, Phyllis?
Sure, that sounds good.
No, just
I don't.
What?
No, I started to say I don't know how many people would remember, but then I reminded myself that in Drexel, when I was in high school and shortly thereafter, there were major musical productions done. So there are a lot of people around who could remember doing
Well, I'll ask you the same
those
thing too.
things.
You
Yes.
mentioned you taught, did other things.
Uh-huh.
I assume you also acted and performed in your life?
Well, I'm sure I was probably in something or other when I was younger, but I didn't really do any acting. I don't really enjoy acting much. I prefer telling everybody where to stand and what to do. That's more my thing. Now you stand over here because I can't remember all those lines and things. I like to sing in choirs and stuff like that. That's mostly what I enjoy.
But you say that, Phyllis. I ask this question, I ask oftentimes to directors, especially whether they prefer acting or directing. And surprisingly, your answer is what most people tell me. They prefer directing. But the real truth, guys, is the reason directors say that is because they don't have to memorize the lines. So
Well, that's a lot of it. But I'll tell you, working with high school kids and middle school kids, because we had some younger ones in some of my shows, I had to act everything out for them.
Sure.
I would do it and I said, do what I do. And I would do every day. It's very painstaking when you're working with kids who've not got a background. Working with adults is a lot different from that who have experience. But I would guess the first play I was in was my senior year in high school.
So you
At
remember
Drexel
that?
High School, we did The King and I was in the ensemble.
Okay.
And it was great.
Well, you can't get,
It was great.
but you can't get out of it. So if we ever do this
I know.
fundraiser, and I'm offering, I'll volunteer to help you guys set it up. But I
That
just
sounds good.
don't you think it'd be a fun thing to do? It reminds me of
Yeah.
um Big Bang Theory. The guy George wasn't in Big Bang Theory, but George Costanza was teaching high school to a group of kids, and the star of Annie didn't show, so George Costanza had to come in and play the role of
Uh-huh.
Annie. So there's a potential for everybody to recreate the role. So just keep that in the back of your mind. I want to do
Yeah.
that. I'll volunteer to help you with it. But I think you said that the town, everybody would love doing it, especially if they're like Kelly, they don't have a record of it. You don't have a record of when you perform. So here
Well,
you,
I have all of mine, all the things I directed, except for the first two, because VHS and camcorders hadn't been invented yet.
right,
But the third play that I directed,
right.
and Keith was in, and My Fair Lady, and Kelly was in it as well. I have that one, and all the rest of mine. I know I probably shouldn't, but I do have them.
But can you imagine too, if the people were in it, or especially local, if you get them to come back to recreate it, I just think it'd be a fun thing to
Well,
do.
I'll tell you, it was my first year teaching, my last year in college, my first year teaching, when Drexel High School did a production of Camelot. And I always wanted to redo that. And I wanted to bring back those people who had done it in
Did
high
it?
school.
Yeah.
And the years went by and I'd talk about it and they go, "Oh, I can do it, but you'll have to be during the summer. I teach school or I live in Greensboro or something like that." And it just never happened. And I had been retired for a number of years, and people brought it back up to me that, "Weren't you going to do Camelot?" And the only way I could really do it was start my own theater. And that was the reason that I did it. Keith played King Arthur, by the way. He was quite wonderful doing that task. And Kelly helped me out with it. So it was, that was the reason I started it.
And what's very
And,
impressed, when I heard that, I was very impressed because
huh?
you
And
actually did that as a Reader's Theater?
no, we did it. We performed it. We did
Oh,
everything. We had a full orchestra with
oh,
strings
oh,
and everything. Yes.
wow.
And we did it at Comma in Morganton, Community Theater in Morganton. And one of my former students, who happened to be the band director at East Burke at the time, Jonathan Berry, he directed the orchestra. We brought in a lot of folks who we knew, and he knows everybody, all the musicians. So we had violins and cellos and the whole thing. But you see, back at Drexel High School and at East Burke High School, Catherine Cyphers did the same thing. We had a full orchestra, everything we did at those high schools. And I did that, directed that production in honor of Catherine Cyphers and Maxine McCall, who was the director back at Drexel High School. So I honored my teachers in doing that. And a lot of people were interested in coming to see it and to pay tribute to their teachers from the past. But it was a quite wonderful production. We
And
had
what's
some
what's so
great
exciting about
performers.
hearing this too, Phyllis, is that
Hmm.
I'm so disappointed in a lot of theater, in our local theater, they don't have live musicians anymore.
I know.
Tracks.
And it is
Yeah,
it is easier in some ways to have
right.
recordings, but I think it's difficult too because you don't get to take the liberties with the
Right.
music that you like to do.
Well,
If you've got good musicians, and John's wonderful with that, and we had folks teach them the chorus and all that, and we had excellent singers. Our Guinevere was absolutely magnificent, and Lancelot as well, and they were able to interpret the songs. Whereas if you have a recording, you have to follow that. And I've seen many local productions that have recordings, and they were fine. They did a good job, but I just prefer the live if it's possible. It's very expensive though,
well,
because you have to pay all those musicians to come and
but
play.
what I don't get though, Phyllis and everybody else, is the rationale. You always say you have to pay musicians, but you don't have to pay actors. And I never quite understood that because what I see it happening, guys, is down the
True.
road we're going to have actors just mouth the words also. So if we can play tracks, you don't need
I
right?
know.
I don't get
I've
it.
I've
Right.
seen that done too. I
Have
don't
you
I don't
really?
know.
I've never seen,
People do all kinds of crazy
I've never
stuff.
seen
Yeah.
that. Kelly, have you ever, I guess in Rita's Theater, you don't have to do that. Have you ever seen anybody mouth the words in Rita's Theater?
Yeah,
Have you
yeah.
really? Oh my goodness.
Not in Reader's Theater, but I've been in a production. I hadn't seen it until recently, but I've seen it done.
Oh wow, not quite the same thing. Let's fast forward a little bit though to this coming weekend, which is going to be the second weekend of this fundraiser. What a great idea for the fundraiser! And I will back to if I can go up top, Phyllis. What's the so the idea of the fundraiser? I heard about the ghost stories, and what's happening this coming weekend, and talk about where and when.
Well, we have two productions, Friday night and Saturday night at 7 p.m. in downtown Drexel. We're performing it in what we call the old bank building. It hasn't been a bank in many, I don't know, 50 years maybe, but that brings back a lot of memories. It has been used by a church since then, and they let us come in and do it. So in the old bank building downtown, there isn't a ticket. There's a donation. We ask for $5 for donation, and all of that money goes to various projects done by the town. Right now, we're trying to put up some shades in our lovely little downtown park so that people don't have to sit in the sun if they go to see an outdoor performance or an event or something. That's the current fundraiser specific idea. But Kelly is the writer and what do you call it, the adapter of these stories.
Yeah.
She's an expert in that. And so you might want to ask her a little bit about the stories that she came up with for this.
Kelly, thank you. Boy, I'll have you take over for me. We'll turn this around and you'll ask questions.
Okay, well, I mean, I can talk about it, but she's the one who did it, so
I'm kidding you.
she can talk about it.
I appreciate it. Makes my job easier. Thank you. So Kelly, let me come up with this original question. No, but in terms of adapting, so you worked with it. You would tell me, I think there were 6 stories going to be seen that
Yeah.
night.
8.
Eight, I'm sorry. And so how do you choose the 8 stories, Kelly?
Well, we had like Phyllis told you earlier, we had done a Reader's Theater program before, and we had planned to do a ghost story show. And so I had gone through and picked out some North Carolina ghost stories that we were going to do for school children, which was actually a more difficult task than I thought it was going to be, because a lot of ghost stories are actually for adult audiences and are very inappropriate for children. They're about murder and sexual misconduct. There were a lot of them that I had to, they're familiar ghost stories that I'd heard when I was a child, actually. But then when I was considering them for to do for a school, I was like, oh no, this will not be appropriate. This will not fly in modern day. And so it was actually very hard to find some. But then COVID came along, and we ended up not doing that show. And the Grow with Drexel opportunity came along, and they wanted something that would be about North Carolina. And I had this partial show of ghost stories, and I decided to put together some folk tales too. And so I picked out a Jack Tale story, which I think that's about everybody's favorite story. So if you come, you've got the Jack Tale to look forward to. And then some other stories that were my favorites. My favorite of North Carolina folklore, typical North Carolina folklore. And I adapted them for Reader's Theater. And I put a lot of music in it. We have a lot of really great singers. I was about to say myself not included, but Martha is my singing instructor, so I'm not allowed to say that in front of her.
Mine too.
And so I feel like it's a good, strong show. It's appropriate for all ages. Although it does have some murder in it. You can't have a good story without some murder in
No
it.
blood, just
Well,
murder.
No blood,
well, what's very unusual
little
though,
misconduct.
yeah,
But
what's very unusual, and we'll have Martha talk about it, but Rita's Theater, I don't know if I've ever seen one that has music to it. So Martha, since Kelly gave us the introduction to that, there's actually, if they come see this, there's going to be music. They'll see some songs as well. How many songs are in this?
Absolutely. There are 3 songs. We sing the Ballad of Tom Dooley,
Okay.
and that's always fun. And everybody knows this song, grew up with it. And then we sing Good Night, Sweetheart in one of them, which is about a girl at the underpass, which is a ghost story that I've actually seen on TV, on a show of the most haunted towns, and I've seen that. So we sing Good Night, Sweetheart. And then there is one that is a story that came from Bat Cave about an unusual visitor that came, and we sing Peace in the Valley. So it's a lot of fun to do that, and I think we shock the audience when we start out singing because they think, I thought this was Reader's Theater, and they're
Right.
singing.
Well,
suddenly it's a musical.
Suddenly it becomes a musical, exactly.
well, you
But
you're laughing.
everyone has a great voice, and it's just, it really adds to the story.
Well, it's interesting to say that, and I'll ask Kelly and Phyllis' reactions to this too. But so many people tell me, and it just drives me crazy, they don't like musicals. They don't like people that get.
Well,
Right.
they're crazy people.
I think so, isn't it? How can you not like a musical? But all of a sudden, the point being, Phyllis, Kelly, that people all of a sudden start singing, walking down the street and singing. But I love it. But your point is so well taken. You mentioned, Martha, the idea of they come, and that would have been my assumption. I come to read a theater. Let me see theater. I don't want a musical. But let me ask you this: does it bother you? Does this ever happen? And I'm curious if it happens when Phyllis has been involved in Kelly as well. Do people, when you're doing these songs, do they join in singing, or does that ever happen?
We invited them to do, yeah. We invited them
They
to
They
did
sing.
show?
last night.
Sometimes
Yeah.
Okay.
when the show's over, people are leaving, and the last song we sing
Peace
is
in
the
Valley.
last song is the last story of the show. So they're either humming it, singing it, or whistling it when they leave.
Right.
Mhm.
So it sneaks up on them, and it's not enough to hurt. Not enough to make it a musical. I hate musicals, and I'm an actor.
No, but I love about what you said is even as you're saying it, it seems to involve people, that if they're going to be
Yes.
humming and singing, they're kind of enjoying it. It is a good sign, I think.
They're whistling it, or at least whistling it when they leave
Okay, very
to go to the
exciting.
party. That's been every performance we've had. Even the kids, when we did it at Drexel, the end of the day, and they were getting ready to go to the homeroom or whatever and get ready to depart for the day, they were singing it and whistling it and humming it and things like that, leaving the theater. So
Now you've been, I guess, in both. Do you have a preference in terms of your performing or acting, musical or drama?
me
Yeah. Do you have
or
preference?
who?
You, Keith.
I like to do both. I think drama. One of the hardest roles I have ever done was To Kill a Mockingbird. I was Bob Ewell, and that's the meanest, the guy, the one who was the bad guy, and I'm not a bad guy. And Bill, during notes, he was constantly on me after each performance. Keith, you're not mean enough, and I went through like 3 or 4 notes after 3 or 4 performances, and Keith, you're still not mean enough. And I said, well, a couple of expletives with the last word was Bill. I yelled at him. He said, that's exactly what I'm looking for. So that, for me, that took more. I've been singing since I was 9. So that took more out of me to do that. So I think more of a challenge for me is the dramatic. But I've done musical roles too, and that was a lot of fun. I probably could have done them better were I a better singer actor, but it's just fun all the way around. So
Let me
I
ask.
think
Go ahead.
musicals are more fun to be in than they are to watch.
Yeah, they are. They
Really?
are.
Yeah,
And playing villains, to me, that's the most fun. I think I would rather play a villain than anything else.
in a musical.
Yes.
Yeah,
In a
playing a
musical.
villain in a musical is
musical.
probably the best of all worlds.
Yes, can I imagine. Let me ask you guys this question. So after this run is over, and by the way, we should mention, so it starts, it's just this, is it Saturday and Sunday? Saturday or Friday and Saturday?
Friday and
Friday.
Saturday,
And starts at what time?
7.
7.
Okay. And so if folks want to get more information about the show or where it is, location, all that good stuff, what's the best bet? To go to a website? Is there a website for this?
Well, the Grow with
Probably
Drexel
Facebook.
Facebook page, but it's not public. You have to join that.
Right.
So I don't really know where to tell you. There's really no more information. Just show up on Friday night, and there is a really good restaurant right across the street. So, and they're offering a special. And so I say show up 5:30
Nina's.
there. Nina's place. Go over and eat at Nina's. They got a new menu. It's great. Walk across the street and come in the side door, and you're there.
Okay, well, it's certainly a good recommendation. And a final question, if I can ask all four of you. So we do play this second weekend this weekend. Moving ahead forward, I go around the room here, but I'll ask Phyllis initially, any plans down the road for what's next?
Well, we have talked about continuing with the Readers Theater, maybe expanding the format a bit and doing North Carolina, I'm sorry, not North Carolina, Burke County
Right.
history. Because every town in Burke County, Valdez got a lot of history. Morganton, a lot of Revolutionary War history there. Hildebrand. There's a lot of towns in Burke County that have interesting stories. And we thought we could start with that and maybe do some traveling around the county at various venues and share some of the stories. People like to hear about stories
Sure,
from
that'd
their
be great.
local plays. And then we really don't know. We've got a lot of folks with a lot of ideas. I have directed a lot of things, and I'm getting to the point where I don't necessarily want to tie myself down for 6 months doing a musical. They take a lot out of you. And but maybe we can get a team together and work out some things. We can always do dramas, musicals, just whatever we can come up with that we can get the people to help us do.
Yeah, or you could even
So,
they could volunteer to help Keith with set construction. You can get you back into
oh
set
yeah, well,
construction days.
Keith's good at building things. He built a lot of things for Camelot that I
Yeah,
had no idea
I
he
heard.
was going to do,
But by the
and
way,
he just.
food for
Mhm.
thought, though, you mentioned something very exciting. So I don't know if you want to share, they can look you up on Facebook or someplace. But if anybody's watching the show, so I have to ask you the question, or you can have me, I'll put in the notes for the show. If somebody wants more information, get involved in, for example, the Theater Guild, or get involved
Well,
in
we do have a
volunteering.
website.
That's what I
Yeah,
need
the
to
Burke
know.
Theater Guild does. Yes.
Okay. So best bet, what's the website, if you would, Phyllis?
It's burketheaterguild.com.
Okay. And that'll have information, Roy, by the way, about this show this
Well,
weekend
I'll
as
have to
well?
call up the webmaster and put him to work and see if he
Okay.
can do that. We'll have to find a photo to put on it, but yeah, we can do
Okay.
that.
So if anybody's interested, I assume you mentioned that, and Kelly would know this as well, that people are always, community theaters or Readers Theater are always looking for volunteers and performers. Is that usually the case?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
So check
Yes.
the website. I'll ask then, Kelly, same thing too. After this production is done, you've written, the helped adapt the short stories. Do you have anything down the road for your upcoming things?
Yes, we've got a lot of script ideas that we've been talking about. There's one about women from Burke County who were involved with the American Revolution.
Mhm.
Also, the building that we are performing in right now was the site of a bank robbery.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking about doing a Reader's Theater script of people's reminiscences about that bank robbery.
Mhm.
Now
And
that's
so we've got a lot of ideas. for scripts coming out.
The building is what, a bank? Or was
It was
It
a
used to be a
bank.
bank.
Yeah.
Yes,
Right
it was
now,
a bank many
Right.
years ago.
currently it's a church.
Because I love your
Um,
idea. Where I used to live near Flemington, uh, New Jersey, they did very similar in a bank. They did the recreation of the Lindbergh baby kidnapping, and they had
Oh,
and,
wow.
and they used it. It was the jury sat in, it was fascinating. So what you just said, Kelly, I love the idea. Would be a great way to recreate, especially in this building. It'd be a great location for it. So
yeah.
in the back of your mind, that's what you're working on. And I'll conclude with Martha and Keith. Anything in terms of your agenda, upcoming plays, activities, or other things you can share?
I'm a minister of music in a little Methodist church in Drexel, and been there a little over 7 years. And Martha and I she's the worship arts team leader at our church, and I back her up. So we do a lot of dramatic readings and skits and things like that. That can we dip our toe into those waters at the church every now and then. But we're kind of following along with our fearless leaders, Phyllis and Kelly. They're always into. They seem to have their ear to the ground a little better than we do, and
we actually, when we started a worship arts team at our church at Christ United Methodist in Drexel. We were going to do some readers theater because the people that I had on my team were scared to death to try to memorize something. And I said, well, let's do readers theater. And we had Kelly to come and speak with our group and tell them about readers theater, give them some ideas, and they've just flown with it. They love it. We do things, of course, for the holidays, for Christmas, for Easter, Thanksgiving, that type of thing. We do have something that I actually, I guess you could say, write. But I thought it would be really cute to come up with a little play that we could do for 4th of July. And we read it a couple of years ago and everybody liked it. So I think we're going to try to revive that. But, we're very active in doing a lot of participation with the congregation as far as, what we do. And they really seem to enjoy it.
Okay, well, anyway, I'd like to thank all four of you. I can't believe we got all four in, and you can see Kelly get back in here. Okay, she's trying to disappear on us. But I'd like to thank you for being my guest on the edition of the Blaine's World webcast. Good luck with the final weekend. It sounds very exciting. If and when you do something upcoming, keep me in mind. We'll have you again on the show. And I wish you a lot of luck this weekend. I'd also like to thank my producer, Cappy Tassetti. And hopefully someplace down the road we'll actually meet in real time as opposed to virtual time here. But this will be great. Thanks, guys. You were great.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Shout out to my daughter.
I was going to ask you, wait, and your daughter
who made this all possible. And I just want to thank her for helping us to be
get in touch with you,
and to help us to be exposed, and so people can start enjoying readers theater.
And
so
since you
thank you,
mentioned,
Jessica.
Wait, you have to mention your daughter's name is
Jessica Johnson.
Okay, and also a very talented performer, musician.
Very talented.
She's the best.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, guys. Speak to you soon.
Thank you. Thanks.